Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis. And today we're taking a slight break from the Summer of the Bee Gees. We'll be back next week with an update covering the 70s. Don't worry. Last week I posted a video in which I ranked the albums of one of my favorite songwriters, and that was Randy Newman. And I said then that Randy Newman he's on my Mount Rushmore of songwriters. Um, while I am working through the Summer of the Bee Gees, I'm also going to be spreading the word about one of my other Mount Rushmore honorees. One of my very favorite songwriters um, is Neil Innes. I love Neil Innes. I was heartbroken when he died here just a couple of years ago. Um, Neil Innes, for those of you who don't know, came to popularity as one of the creative songwriters for a group from the late 60s called the Bonzo Dog Doo-Dah Band. After that band broke up, he went on to a fairly successful solo career. It didn't hurt that he was buddies with members of the Monty Python troupe. He wrote a lot of the music for Monty Python. And he and Eric Idle were particularly close. They did a TV show together called Rutland Weekend Television that led to one of my prized possessions, the Rutland Weekend Songbook. I love this album. Because of his association with Eric Idle, because of Rutland Weekend Songbook, a sketch that they did on Rutland Weekend Songbook turned into a special on NBC called All You Need Is Cash, featuring the Ruttles. And so he became popular for that as well. But he also had, he had a very good solo career. He's got several very, very good albums. So I'm going to be looking at Neil Innes over the next few weeks, alternating probably between Neil Innes and associated acts and Summer of the Bee Gees. So get ready. I'm going to be making the case for this man on my personal Mount Rushmore. I'm going to have to cut that silence out. Why do I like Neil Innes as much as I do? I like Neil Innes as much as I do largely because he is a very good comic musician. I love comic music. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying I love, song parodies and novelty songs and stuff like that. That's all well and good. I'm not saying I dislike that. I mean, there's, although these aren't really song parody, a couple of them are. This is more a production and performance parody, but we'll get to that when we're talking about the Ruttles. When I say comic music, I mean music that has comic sensibilities. Music that aims to make you laugh as much as it aims to make you lose yourself in the music. It's Randy Newman is on my Mount Rushmore because he is a good comic songwriter. Neil Innes, brilliant comic songwriter. And I'm going to be talking a lot about comic music over the next few weeks, so get ready for it. So Neil is up there on my Mount Rushmore. But the first step in celebrating the man, celebrating the career here, is to talk about that band from the 60s, the Bonzo Dog Doo-Dah Band. A very brief history here. Going forward, I'm just going to refer to them either as the Bonzo Dog Band or the Bonzos. Bonzo Dog Doo-Dah Band is a mouthful. The members of the Bonzos, and I'm going to forget because I didn't actually make a list of this, but you've got Neil Innes, you've got Vivian Stanshall, you've got Roger Ruskin Spear, you've got Legs Larry Smith, you've got Vernon Dudley Bohey Knoll. I love that name. You've got, let's see, who Rodney Slater, right? They're all musicians, but they're primarily art students. They're attending various art colleges around London in the mid 60s. And they get together because, in addition to being artists, they also like playing music. And so they get together, they find each other, and they get together and they entertain themselves by doing these exaggerated comic versions of these old jazz novelty songs, like My Brother Makes the Noises for the Talkies, and Alibaba's Camel, and stuff like this. Right? These are old songs from the 20s. They would go out to thrift stores and look through 78 bins and find old 78s of and if it had a funny title, they'd buy it and they'd take it back to one of their apartments and they'd play it and they'd learn it. And before long, they started playing around at pubs doing these old jazz songs. And they're artists, right? So they're not trying to play a faithful rendition of the song. I mean, they're very good musicians, and so they are doing a fairly faithful rendition of the song, but what they're really trying to do is they're trying to make people laugh, and they're trying to create this almost performance art thing. They're not just playing their saxophones and trumpets and pianos and drums and guitars and spoons and various other instruments that they play. They're also playing appliances. And, they're bringing up mannequins that they're beating on, and the trouser press. Right? They actually play in trouser presses up there. It was not just about music. It was also about entertaining and seeing how far they could go in performing these songs and still be able to reach an audience. And they became fairly popular in and around England, so much so that when they, individually, when they graduated from art school, they realized they could make more money doing this music stuff than pursuing their art. They sign a recording contract and they start cranking out albums. And they work like dogs. I mean, they are working essentially 365 days a year. I mean, they very seldom get time off. They're out touring, playing concerts. When they aren't playing concerts, they're making the next album, and then they're right back out making concerts. They toured in the U.S. I mean, they worked like dogs. So much so that their first album came out in 1967, and by 1970 they were burned out. Their success had risen to the point where they were actually starting to hobnob with groups like the Beatles. The Beatles hired the Bonzo Dog Band to make an appearance in Magical Mystery Tour. When they stop at that dingy club and they're listening to the lounge act, that's the Bonzo Dog Band playing Death Cab for Cutie off of their first album. But by 70, they're burned out. They essentially fall apart. They briefly reunite in 1972 to record their contractual obligation album. They were required to get one more album out, and they did. They recorded that, and then they went their separate ways. The two primary songwriters were Neil Innes and Vivian Stanshall. And both Neil and Viv went on to solo careers. Viv more in theater than in music, but they were still, and then, amazingly enough, in 2007, they reunited. I love this album. Vivian Stanshall had passed away by this point, and so they needed somebody with that comic delivery, with the ability to voice the characters that Viv would voice. And so they ended up replacing him with three people: Ade Edmondson, Phil Jupitus, and Stephen Fry. And when Stephen Fry is one of three, these are the people that you're having to recruit to replace one man. That tells you how important that one man is. Oh, woof. And so they get together in 2007. It's originally just a concert, maybe a few concerts celebrating the 50th anniversary. But they go ahead and record an album. It's a very good album. And it's entirely possible that Neil had intents of doing even more with the Bonzos when he passed. I know he was in the process of setting up a Ruddles tour when he died. But who knows what he might have done after that was over. During this time period, from 1967 to 2007, they recorded 6 albums. So we're going to rank those 6 albums, and it's going to go pretty quickly now that I've gotten through all of the preamble. You ready? Okay, before we get into the ranking, subjectivity notice. There is no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad art. There is only art that I like and art that I do not like. And as long as we keep that in mind, this is a wonderful conversation. It's instructive. It helps us figure out why we like what we like, and it gives us a little bit of humility when we find out that the things that we think of as North Stars are actually despised by other people. It's all good. Everything positive comes out of this conversation. Up until the point when somebody involved in the conversation seems to be laboring under the impression that there is such a thing as right and wrong. No. There is not right. There is agree and disagree, but there is not right and wrong. There will be decisions I make here that you disagree with, and that's fine. We all have different tastes. That's the spice of life. If you want to discuss this with me in the comments, I strongly encourage that. I always love hearing from you. Just don't tell me I'm wrong. That'll piss me off. Also, very quickly, let's talk about the ground rules. Because it's a ranking video, I have to do the ground rules. When we rank albums here at Papa Nick's Music, we rank original studio albums that are intended as their primary purpose to be albums. So no remixes, no remasters, no re-recordings or reimaginings, anything like that. Studio, no live albums. Albums, it has to be a full-length album, no EPs. And then finally, no soundtracks, Christmas albums, tribute albums, that kind of stuff. And we don't have to worry about that with any of this. They never... As far as I know, they didn't do a live album. As far as I know, they did. Yeah, there are compilations. I have, for example, all of their albums on one 2 CD set or 3 CD set. Yeah, 3 CD set. But we're just focusing on the albums. Now, also, before I get into the actual ranking, as I have mentioned before, when I think of albums, when I'm starting to think in terms of comparing them, which album do I like better than which other album, I think in terms of grades. Spent the bulk of my adult life as a teacher. Grading is natural to me. And a normal album, an everyday album, a competent album is a C. If it's good, I recommend it. Or if it's, I recommend you stay away from that. That's B and D, right? If it's, oh my God, this is fantastic, you need to have a copy of it. Or, oh my God, this is, oh, Jesus. Light a match. That's A and F, right? Most of the artists that I like have a high number of A albums. Of course, that's why I like them. The Bonzos are unusual in that all 6 of these albums are A's. All 6 of them. Okay? We were talking about Randy Newman last week. All of his albums are A's. All of the Bonzo albums are A's. This is what we call foreshadowing, because I'm going to be talking about Neil Innes's other comedy work, and I'm going to be talking about his solo albums, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of A's in that stuff. My lowest graded album is an A-. I've got 1 A-, I've got 3 A's, and I have 2 A+. So, before I get into any of this, you cannot pick badly here. Just grab one and go. This is fun stuff. It is good stuff. It is a bit of an acquired taste, I will admit that. The saxophones are recorded in such a way that can be a little off-putting when you first hear it. That's intentional. They're lampooning old jazz songs. So, But it's all good stuff. Coming in at number 6 of my 6 from 1972. This is the contractual obligation album, Let's Make Up and Be Friendly. There are very good songs. I'm giving it an A minus. I mean, there are very good songs on here. This album has King of Scurf. I laugh every time I hear that. We've got Rawlinson End. Viv Stanchel did a lot of stuff featuring the Rawlinsons, and that's, he went with that. We've got Bad Blood. We've got Slush. Oh, Slush is just such a wonderful but creepy ass song. There's a lot of really good stuff on here. It's just, it's the sixth. Coming in at number 5, we've got that reunion. We've got that hey, if we got a 50th anniversary coming up, let's release Pour l'amour des chiens. Which I love this album. I love Phil Jupitus and Stephen Fry. So this is, it just breaks my heart that Viv didn't last long enough to celebrate this milestone. But I mean, if you can't have Viv, Phil Jupitus and Stephen Fry is a pretty good consolation prize. We've got some good stuff on here. In the old vein, Let's All Go to Mary's House, to Mary's House, to Mary's House, which is an old that they've ramped up. We also have, there's a cover of a Kaiser Chiefs song, I Predict a Riot, that is hilarious. My Friends Outside is great. Democracy, that's a good Neil Innes tune. There's a lot of really good music on Pour l'amour des chiens. I strongly recommend that one. Coming in at number 4, another A. From 1969, we have Tadpoles. Tadpoles is I'm saying it on all 6 of these. It's a great album. We've got some wonderful songs on here. Hunting Tigers Out in India. Yeah. I'm the Urban Spaceman. The closest they got to a radio hit, I'm the Urban Spaceman. That's on Tadpoles, produced by Paul McCartney. Mr. Apollo is on here, another Neil Innes song that's great. Canyons of Your Mind is Viv Stanchel's Elvis homage, and it's fantastic. It has the worst guitar solo ever recorded. Intentionally, the worst guitar solo ever recorded. One of the hardest things that Neil Innes has ever done, he said once in an interview. Tadpoles. Coming in at number 3, from 1968, we have The Donut in Granny's Greenhouse. There are, on a couple of these albums, there are some high points, some low points. The low points are never really low. They're just kind of, oh, that was weird. But the highs are, and the highs on The Donut in Granny's Greenhouse are, 2 of my all-time favorite Bonzo songs are on this album. They are My Pink Half of the Drainpipe and Rhinocratic Oaths. I can listen to both of those things on a loop all day long. The blend of music and storytelling is just, I'm in awe of those 2 songs. Especially My Pink Half of the Drainpipe. Rhinocratic Oaths I really like, but My Pink Half of the Drainpipe. Wow, fantastic. This is also, if we're thinking Neil Innes, Hello Mabel. A song that I thought, when I first heard it, was an oldie that they were doing, and no, Neil Innes wrote that one. So. Donut in Granny's Greenhouse. Great. Okay. We're up to my top 2, and both of these are good, solid A+ albums. I would say both of these are perfect albums. I adore both of these albums. I've got them ranked the way I've got them ranked simply because I heard one of them before I heard the other. And so it has precedence for that reason only. My number 2 album, excuse me, from 1969 is Chiens. Now, there aren't very many Bonzo Dog Band ranking videos out there. What is it with you people? The ones I've seen, the lists that I've read on blogs and stuff like that, Chiens tends to come in pretty low in the list, which just breaks my heart every time I see it because I think it is a superior album. The Donut in Granny's Greenhouse, I think, is a very strong album. It's a very strong Bonzo Dog Band album. Chiens is a very strong album. Just period. Full stop. Album. It is on my... It's... If we've got any albums on here that are going to be contenders for my favorite albums of all time, these top two albums, Keynsham and the one that I haven't mentioned yet, are contenders for that list. Keynsham is brilliant. We've got some wonderful Neil Innes songs on here. Quiet Talks and Summer Walks. I Want to Be With You, which is just a sweet little pop song. We've also got Viv at his sarcastic finest with We Were Wrong, but so young and so very in love. I love that song. That breezy British day at the Brighton race courses, the wind blew your skirt up and it frightened the horses. I love that. We Were Wrong is one of the few songs of the Bonzos that I will do in my sets when I'm playing out. It also has The Bride Stripped Bare by the Bachelors, which is just a brilliant little song about the experience of being the Bonzo Dog Band out touring. I love Keynsham. It gets an A+. And the only reason that my number one album, Gorilla, is number one is I heard it first. Gorilla was their debut album from 1967. It has Death Cab for Cutie, the song that appeared in Magical Mystery Tour, Big Shot, I'm Bored, Piggy Bank Love, if we're thinking about Neil Innes songs, Jollity Farm, if we're thinking about the old songs that they're doing. It's just, this is a wonderful album. The first time I had ever heard of the Bonzo Dog Band, I had a friend in college, shout out to Glenn. Hey Glenn, if you're out there, thank you for playing me that tape, who had a cassette that he had recorded some Bonzo Dog Band songs on. And it may have been Gorilla, but it had Death Cab for Cutie and Big Shot. I remember those two specifically. And I loved it. The first time I heard it, it's like, oh man, this is great. It's just, yeah, I love this stuff. And so because I was introduced to it first, it has prominence because of that. So Gorilla sneaks in at number one, even though Gorilla and Keynsham are both fantastic albums. They are both A+ albums. And again, I argue they are both perfect albums. They are, if my house is on fire, I'm rescuing those two. I love it. Love the Bonzo Dog Band. So, that's how I would rank these albums. How would you rank them? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know below. I always love to hear from you. Just remember, agree and disagree, not right and wrong. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button. Go ahead and subscribe. What the hey, it's free. You might as well. And if you do subscribe, click the notification icon. That would be nice. Thanks again for watching. And I hope that the rest of your day... That was the last one I generated. I hope that the rest of your day is blissful. See you soon.